Great people who did some not-so-great things. Part 2. We're back. And I've organized these by which one surprised me the most. Starting with Henry Ford. You know this guy, right? Put America on wheels, revolutionized manufacturing with the assembly line, Model T, $5 a day wage. Industrial genius, etc., etc. Sounds like a hero, right? Well, not so fast. See, while Ford was busy making cars affordable for regular people, he had another hobby. And that hobby was hating Jewish people. Like really hating them. In 1920, Ford bought his own newspaper, not to report the news, but to spread anti-Semitic propaganda, the Dearborn Independent, for 7 straight years. This paper published some of the most vile hatred you can imagine, week after week after week. Crazy that he literally bought a whole newspaper just to hate on people. That's dedication to bigotry right there. But wait, it gets worse. Ford then published a book series called The International Jew, the World's Foremost Problem.
Yep, that's a real title. And this wasn't some obscure publication. He distributed millions of copies worldwide. And yet, it gets darker. This book became a bestseller in Nazi Germany, and freaking Hitler kept Ford's portrait in his office. The guy literally called Ford his inspiration. When the most evil man in history says you're his role model, maybe that's a sign that you've gone off the rails. And speaking of the Nazis, in 1938, Ford became the first American to receive Nazi Germany's highest honor for foreigners, the Grand Cross of the German Eagle. Picture this. Jewish families are fleeing Europe, and Ford's getting medals from Hitler. His propaganda was so influential that it was cited during the Nuremberg trials. Ford's writings helped lay the groundwork for the Holocaust. Sure, he eventually apologized in 1927 after facing lawsuits and boycotts, but even then, he kept spreading his views privately. It was damage control, not genuine remorse.
Next time you see that Ford logo, remember the guy revolutionized how we make things, but he also helped manufacture hatred. Speaking of genocide, it's time to talk about a dude who burned down a forest because he was too high to care. Johnny Cash, country music legend, the man in black, sang about heartbreak and redemption. You know, Ring of Fire, prison concerts, that growly voice. Every boomer thinks he had a deep soul, but honestly, this guy was a walking disaster with a guitar. So, it's 1965. Johnny's driving through California's Lost Pedra National Forest in a camper, tripping on every drug imaginable. Stimulants, depressants, you name it. Dude was a walking pharmacy. All of a sudden, his camper catches fire. Normal people would try to put it out or call for help, right? Johnny, he just left, threw that flaming disaster into the wilderness and drove away. Had places to be, drugs to take. The result, a wildfire that burned 500 acres and killed endangered California condors.
These birds were already almost extinct. There were only dozens left in the world. Johnny basically helped push an entire species close to extinction. When the government sued him for $125,000, you'd think he'd apologize, right? Show some remorse. Nope. Johnny said, "I don't care about your damn yellow birds." Like, what did condors ever do to you? And this wasn't his only disaster. The man was basically a walking catastrophe. This one time he was arrested for smuggling drugs from Mexico. They found pills hidden in his boots. Officer, these aren't drugs. They're boot vitamins. He also got banned from the Grand Ole Opry after he literally kicked out all the footlights on stage during a tantrum just because he got less stage time. Plus, his personal life even messier. Johnny was constantly cheating while on tour, leaving his wife Vivian to raise 4 daughters alone. His famous love story with June Carter that started while he was married to Vivian.
Nothing says romance like, adultery. People love talking about his redemption arc, but the guy kept relapsing constantly. Look, Johnny struggled with serious addiction issues, and addiction is a disease that destroys lives. But here's the thing, the environmental destruction and his I don't give a heck attitude about endangered species, that is much harder to excuse. He wore black and looked cool with a guitar, so apparently we just ignore all the chaos he left behind. Whatever. Speaking of mass murder, it's time to talk about World of Warships. World of Warships may just be the boat game. This game gives you control of a bunch of historically accurate World War II-era battleships. It's cool as hell. I mean, just look at the explosions. Thrash people with majestic US naval power. Check out this devious snipe by the USS Maine. The realism in this game is one of the best part.
So every warship needs its own commander, and you can choose from so many, including some legendary dudes from history. Every ship is based on actual historical blueprints, so you know they're realistic. The game is free to play and huge, with over 40 maps and tons of ship classes for both PvP and PvE. They've got a special campaign celebrating American naval history. For new players, use my invite code STEPUP when you sign up to get a ton of exclusive in-game rewards. 7 days premium account, 1 million credits, 500 D-Loons, a Stars and Stripes ship skin, and 2 American ships, the USS Albany and USS Smith. Check out World of Warships. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. Oh yeah, and it's available on consoles. Alexander Graham Bell, he invented the telephone so people could communicate better, then spent his life trying to stop deaf people from communicating at all. Yeah, that Alexander Graham Bell.
So, Bell was obsessed with stopping deaf people from marrying each other and having deaf children. What did he do about it? Used his fame and influence to launch a full-scale campaign against the deaf community. 'Cause nothing says innovation like systematic oppression, right? In 1883, he gave a speech called Memoir upon the formation of a deaf variety of the human race. And yes, it's as horrifying as it sounds. He warned about the dangers of deaf communities forming using sign language and getting married. His proposed solution: ban sign language, separate deaf kids, and make it illegal for deaf people to marry each other. Straight up eugenics. And here's the twisted part. Bell's wife was deaf. His mom was deaf. He was surrounded by deaf culture, literally benefiting from it every single day. And instead of supporting it, he tried to destroy it. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you. This man was living his entire life thanks to the deaf community, and then decided, you know what?
Let me try to eliminate these people. The audacity is unmatched. He pushed oralism, forcing deaf students to speak and libre instead of using sign language. Deaf kids were literally punished, sometimes physically, for signing. Schools fired deaf teachers and banned sign language completely. So, this guy invented a device to help people communicate across distances, then dedicated his life to preventing an entire community from communicating at all. The irony is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. But hey, at least Bell didn't hang out with literal murderers for fun, unlike Frank Sinatra, old Blue Eyes himself. Before we dig into Mr. Sinatra over here, let's talk about his friends for a minute, Lucky Luciano and Sam Giannana. And if you couldn't tell by their names, they were gangsters. Lucky Luciano literally co-founded the National Crime Syndicate, basically the board of directors for organized crime in America.
Sam Giannana. He ran the Chicago outfit and was suspected of helping rigged the 1960 election. And these were Frank's golf buddies. But the crime stuff is just an appetizer, mind you. Frank also treated women worse than expired milk. One ex said that he threatened her with a broken bottle. Another said he threw furniture during fights. He stalked Ava Gardner after their breakup because apparently no wasn't in his vocabulary, and he was a career-destroying extraordinaire. Didn't like a joke. Congrats! You're blacklisted from Hollywood. Made fun of his to pay. Say goodbye to your recording contract. He wanted to be feared, not just famous. A mob boss with backup dancers minus the charm. Frank thought that being terrifying was a personality trait. Like most people try to be likable, this guy was out here collecting enemies like Pokemon cards.
So when people share his quotes today like he was some romantic philosopher, just remember this guy ran with organized crime while leaving a trail of emotional wreckage behind him. Nice voice though, and if you think being tight with the mob is bad, you got another thing coming. This next dude thought dating a 14-year-old was totally fine. Guess who? Elvis Presley, the hip, swiveling, peanut butter sandwich-loving king of rock and roll. You know the guy. Except here's the thing. Elvis met Priscilla when he was 24 and she was 40, still asking permission to use the bathroom at school and getting excited about pizza day in the cafeteria. And everyone was just cool with this. Her parents were like, "Oh, it's Elvis, so it's fine." I love how fame just erases all common sense. Like, if your neighbor did this, you'd call Chris Hansen faster than you can say take a seat. But apparently, fame is a get-out-of-jail-free card for being a creep. Elvis molded her into a human Barbie doll.
He picked her clothes, her makeup, even told her what color to dye her hair. When she tried to wear age-appropriate makeup to school, he made her wash it off because nothing says healthy relationship like controlling a teenager's lip gloss choices, right? They got married when she was 21 after 7 years of him programming her to be his ideal woman. And surprise, surprise, he lost interest after she became a mom. Almost as if he was only attracted to her youth and innocence. Who could have seen that coming? But somehow, this got romanticized as relationship goals. 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 If your 24-year-old cousin brought back a 14-year-old to Thanksgiving, the whole family would be calling the FBI and changing locks, but slap some blue suede shoes on it, and suddenly it's classic romance. Love really is blind, and apparently also terrible at math. Okay, but at least Elvis wasn't a founding father writing about freedom while literally having his own children as slaves.
Thomas Jefferson has entered the chat. The third US president, he's on your money, wrote, "All men are created equal." Huge advocate of freedom. Or was he? See, the thing is, while Jefferson was writing these beautiful essays about freedom and equality, he literally owned 600 people. And I'm not rounding up for dramatic effect here. 600 humans. And yes, it gets worse. Sally Hemings. Jefferson had a relationship with her that started when she was a teenager, and he was in his 40s. She had 6 of his kids. And guess what? He never freed most of them. His own children stayed enslaved. Peak deadbeat dad behavior. Some of them had to literally pretend to be white to escape slavery because their famous founding father, Dad, couldn't be bothered to acknowledge them as human beings. And here's the kicker. Jefferson loved writing about how slavery is morally wrong. Then he'd go outside and watch his enslaved workers do stuff in the fields in the blazing heat.
Kind of like tweeting about climate change from your private jet, philosophically speaking. This man wrote entire essays about freedom while literally owning slaves. The continent of dissident is just chef's kiss. Oh, and how did he die? Baroque as hell. Had to sell his enslaved people to pay off debts. His hypocrisy was institutional, but this next guy made destroying people's lives a personal hobby. Meet Ernest Hemingway. Boomers think he invented masculinity, and red flag enthusiasts find him relatable. Sure, he wrote some classics, but behind that typewriter was a walking disaster. First off, Ernest drank. Drank. Bryans begged him to quit. Doctors warned him to stop. He persisted. And his alcoholism paired great with his anger issues. Mind you, if he wasn't yelling, fighting, or punching something, he was probably blackout drunk. People were genuinely terrified of setting him off over tiny things.
His parenting style: show up occasionally, throw money at problems, and disappear. His son, Gregory, struggled with gender identity his whole life, partly because he knew his hyper-masculine dad would never accept it. Spoiler, he didn't. Ernest called Gregory sick and cut him off completely. Women, 4 wives in a row, like he was collecting Pokemon, always the same pattern. Marry, manipulate, cheat, destroy, then write a book blaming her for everything. He once made his current wife and future wife live in the same house because apparently emotional torture was a hobby. Ernest thought having her ex-wife and future wife under the same roof was a brilliant idea. Nothing could possibly go wrong with that arrangement, right? He was obsessed with proving his masculinity too. Hunting, bullfighting, war zones. Basically, if they could kill him, he was in. And mentally, he was falling apart. Paranoid. Depressed. Convinced the FBI was watching him. Everyone thought he was delusional.
Plot twist, they actually were watching him. But that doesn't make him stable, just paranoid with good instincts. So when people call Hemingway complex, Just remember, drunk, angry, manipulative guy who made everyone around him miserable. The books were great, but the man straight toxic. And finally, let's end with the OG toxic male who convinced the entire Western world that women were just broken men. Aristotle, everybody. Smart Greek guy who invented logic and also thought women were defective men. Literally. So he genuinely believed that if nature tried to make a man but messed up, you got a woman instead. He called women mutilated males. Dead serious about this too. In his book, Generation of Animals, he said, "Men provide the form and women provide the matter. Dudes make the baby and women are just fancy incubators." His political takes were equally garbage. Men are natural leaders because they can think. Women, their reasoning is without authority.
Translation: she has thoughts, but we're not listening. But wait, there's more. Aristotle thought that some people were natural slaves destined to be owned because they allegedly lacked reason. He created a whole political philosophy based on some people are just meant to be property. And here's the worst part. These weren't just some weirdo's fringe opinions. Aristotle was the man in Western philosophy. His ideas influenced everything for like 2,000 years. Medieval scholars, Catholic thinkers, Enlightenment philosophers, they all treated his work as gospel. This guy's terrible takes about women in slavery became the foundation of Western thought for 2 millennia. Really shows our priorities as a species. So when women were denied education, property rights, and basic human dignity. Thank Aristotle. Oh, and he also thought flies had 4 legs, and that some animals just spawned from mud, creating logic while believing just straight-up fairy tales.
But sure, let's build our entire philosophical tradition on his work. Although, to be fair, he was starting from scratch. Anyway, remember to download World of Warships using my link in the description and use code STEPUP for a bunch of free